So to make bronze, you need the source material, and the parts of China they were in had the best source material. They needed tin, right? They needed copper, and they needed bits of other trace materials like antimony and lead and stuff to make good bronze. Now, they have bronze in Greece around the same time, a little bit later. They had bronze in the Middle East and bits of, Asia Minor, Mesopotamia. They had bronze in Egypt, but unfortunately the bronze wasn't as good. There were traces of arsenic or mercury in the bronze. In fact, the Greeks' god for making metals, metallurgy, is lame. They didn't understand that until recently they discovered that the bronze they were making during that time actually had traces of mercury and arsenic. That's why the guy who was the patron saint actually had too much arsenic and mercury in him. And that was the same too. Some of the great leaders in other parts of the world actually died from exposure to too much mercury and arsenic, and same with the tradesmen who made them. Now, this is blessing for the Shang dynasty. There was very little content of arsenic or mercury in their metals. And of course the Shang dynasty people, if they are allowed to debate me, will say, but Sifu, you didn't know, we were smart people, we know what's mercury, mate. So the reality is they had better quality metal and they made really, really fine objects. When people made bronze objects in the rest of the world, they made bronze objects, like weapons or, drinking vessels or something, something for food. But in China, they always do things bigger and better than anyone else. And they made something called the Ting. And some of the Ting were so huge, they were a ton. They were like, 1,000 plus 2,000 pounds. But the finesse of the Ting, the finish, the detail work suggests skills that were not available to, in some cases, thousands of years later in other civilizations. So they were very, very smart people. And to assemble a thing that's like, thousands of pounds meant that they knew how to make all the different parts. They had to make it in different parts and come together seamlessly at the right time. So maybe they invented just in time rather than anybody else. So this is a kind of technology that shows that they were really, really way ahead of everybody else. Okay? And this thing were considered a symbol of power. In fact, there were things even before their time, during the Xia dynasty, and came all the way down, and many emperors right throughout Chinese history tried to keep this thing, and because it was a symbol of their authority, symbol of their power, of their sovereign power. Okay? Now, what else is there to suggest that life was different in the Shang dynasty? Let me explain this to you. For one, the Shang dynasty people were very skilled in some sciences, some of which even to today people don't understand. Now, I'm the first to admit that I'm a person of very modest intelligence, but one thing God has given me some common sense is the ability to look at some facts. If I don't understand them, I will tell you I don't understand them. If I don't have enough facts, I'll tell you I don't have enough facts. But unfortunately, not all historians have done the same thing. When they come to things they don't understand or facts that are inconvenient, they very often just say, that's rubbish, or that's irrelevant, or that's hocus pocus, superstition, just throw it away. Unfortunately, when we keep doing that, we lose a lot of the science and technology and skills that we actually had. So let me explain this to you. Let's look at the bronze products. The bronze products that the Shang dynasty produced included scientific instruments, medical instruments for operations, for cutting, for surgery, for acupuncture, for treatment of diseases, which was so far beyond their time. It's, I don't even know what word or phrase to explain to you, but they had it and they used it and it worked. So there's some higher wisdom among some people there. Obviously, it was not widespread, as in the slave also could get the treatment. It wasn't like that. It wasn't Medicare for the slaves, But the smart, educated, the top guys, they really have access to some incredible technology. Now, there are 3 areas that I want to mention to you in a brief manner, because I'm not an expert on it, but I need to mention it to you because it has been discarded, it has been bunked, because there are a lot of guys who, with their knowledge of modern science and technology today, which doesn't fit in really well with the knowledge of that time, decided that because it doesn't fit in, then it's irrelevant or nonsense, so they threw it away. So I'm not going to throw it away, I'm going to leave it here, because we're going to sit back time and time again and examine these areas, okay? Because it's an evolving science for us today to discover the knowledge and technology and science of the past. So 3 areas let me mention to you: astronomy, astrology, and divination. The heart of Shang dynasty. Let's talk about astronomy. The Shang dynasty has an incredibly deep and detailed knowledge of astronomy. What's astronomy? Timan Hawk. They charted and recorded so many events that even to today people cannot understand how they could do it. I'll explain to you later how they did it. But first, they charted all the constellations and planets. So many stars and moons and suns. How did they do it? Different novas and supernovas, movements of meteors. How did they do it? I'll tell you in a moment. Then, astrology. Astrology is relating what happens up there to what happens down here. And because of the strong beliefs and methodology of a lot of people in the past few hundred years, especially of late, they use modern day science, which may not be the correct yardstick to measure astrology, and then they go and say, doesn't fit this way, and then they say it's bunk. Kick it away. Let me explain to you why it's not bunk. Because they have found hundreds of thousands of Shang dynasty bones. And this only represents a tip of the iceberg, because they have not found a single emperor's tomb. They only have found tombs of significant people, but no emperors. And they have not found some of the most significant figures' tombs. So if they do find those, the numbers could multiply greatly. But of what they have found, which runs to hundreds of thousands of bones alone, not to mention other evidence aside from bones, like bronze vessels and so forth, and weapons. They have managed to see the link, if you are prepared to be fair-minded, between the knowledge of what happens up there and what goes on down here. It's just that for whatever personal agenda historians have in the past, they've sort of said, astrology doesn't work for me, mate. I read today's Straits Times. I was supposed to hit the lottery. I didn't, so I don't believe in this. But the science is there. Let me go on to the third leg. Astronomy, astrology, and the third leg, divination. Like, listen, divination is the art of predicting what will happen in the future through a method or process. And the method or process in the Shang dynasty was to use bone, usually the bone of the cattle or the tortoise shell, but there were other bones as well. But you know, I mentioned in my earlier lecture, in 100 plus years ago, there was I think 1899, there was a kind of epidemic in China, and so there was a search for a lot of people to get all kinds of Chinese medicine, and there was a big fee paid out to people to go and get all kinds of herbs and bones, and suddenly they started discovering all these bones. Now they have actually gone round now to look at this en masse and discovered that first and foremost, this oracle bones, these bones for divination, is the clear proof between the Shang dynasty's discovery of handwriting, or the continuation of handwriting from the early dynasties to today. They have found close to 5,000 characters, independent characters, on these bones alone. Now, aside from their love for bloody battle, they also have some civilization. 5,000 characters. I don't know how many of my friends today write Chinese can write 5,000 characters. It's a lot, isn't it? There are 5,000 distinct characters, and they're still looking through these bones. Now, the divination aspect here, it's really important for us to bear in mind what happened now. The people who had access to these divination was usually either the king or a high priest or priestess. And these people were using these bones in a way that they could ask questions and get answers. Now, the way a lot of researchers have concluded was that, oh, look, tortoise shells doesn't make sense, so I can't read the handwriting, it's hieroglyphics to me, let's forget about it. But the reality is, detailed questions were asked throughout the 500 odd years of Shang dynasty, and permeating a little bit into the Zhao dynasty later as well, but let's stick to the Shang dynasty. And on the basis of the hundreds of thousands of bones we have, these questions were asked in relation to marriage, life, birth, death, battles, natural disasters like rainfall or too heavy rainfall, tornadoes, hurricanes, all kinds of things, forest fire out of control, invasion by another tribe. And what happened was, the question was just asked, they actually received answers, and this was further followed by postscript noting the accuracy or lack of accuracy of the answer. And out of these hundreds of thousands of bones, the accuracy is extremely high. Now they recorded that. Now you can't tell me that for 550 years these guys wrote lies on the bones. I refuse to believe that. And the other thing is, you can't tell me that such a high degree of accuracy is of no use to them. It must be of great use. Why would emperor after emperor, king after king, general after general go to war and ask the questions of the same guy up there, get an answer which is completely misleading, and then get wiped out? The Shang dynasty would have disappeared after 5 years or 5 weeks. Wouldn't have lasted 550 years. So that before they went to warfare, they actually asked, if we went to battle on this day, if we went to take that mountain first, if we first line of defense we retreated to the west, what will happen? They were detailed questions. And after they acted upon it, somebody comes back and writes and records what happened in the battle. So it is not, and they have catalogued it. So what happens is, when they found these bones, they actually had a record going through the years and years of whatever questions were asked, what action took place, and then the conclusion and what they learned from it. It was like a library of archives. And this was only a small discovery. These hundreds of thousands of bones is only the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, they haven't found the main archives. They haven't found the emperor's tombs. None of the emperor's tombs or the Shang dynasty have been found. Okay, how do we know this is true? There is a find, I believe the year was 1976, of a tomb of China's possibly first recorded great female general warrior. 1976年掘到，我哋可以話中國頭一個女猛將，頭一個女雄性將軍，一個係佢唔係商人，佢唔係商朝人嘅。The emperor of the day at that time, Wu Ding, he had to fight many battles. In fact, every time he fought a battle with a different tribe, he had to negotiate a peace. And to make it a lasting peace, he usually married the princess of the tribe. And he was recorded in the oracle bones. He had 50 marriages of this nature. He actually married 50 princesses of foreign tribes surrounding his kingdom. And one of them was Lady Fu Hao. Fu as in Fu Lei Ge Fu, Hao as in Ho. So Ho, Fu Ho, was possibly the first great recorded Chinese stateswoman. She was not only a senior general who constantly fought for the Shang dynasty.